whatever the case is. It is informed speculation, but it's suspect. But here's where the dots for me started getting connected in a strategic way. I knew about the geopolitical, geostrategic significance of the Hawaiian island chain. There's a reason why we've always maintained it, and again, why 25% of all the Hawaiian landmass is military operational bases. That is a huge percentage when you think about it. And like I said, it is the highest concentration of military personnel per capita in the entire United States. It is the singular most strategic forward operating base for the entire mainland continental United States, and it is the singular most significant missile testing range. I mean, I've trained guys in Yuma. I'm not too far from Dulce, too far from Los Alamos. No, neither are you, Dave. I know that we're kind of in the similar region out here in the Southwest, and yet this one outstrips them all. But here was the particular aspect when I think, and I've been on your show before. We've talked about the perestroika deception, right? The overture, the Russian-Chinese connection to the impending World War III with a kinetic strike on the U.S. mainland because of the bought and paid for U.S. politicians, including our mineral rights, are bought and paid for. They're being given as collateral, and all the way down to our governors and our county road commissioners and our mayors and our chiefs of police have all been bought and paid for, and that China has been assured stand down orders as far as the Rocky Mountain range, right? We've covered that ad nauseum. But in order to do that, you need a forward operating staging area for your own troops and your own logistics with a inland protected deep water port, i.e. Pearl Harbor, but you also need to take out the eyes and ears of any of our defensive capabilities. So let me just give you a quick
And
rundown on
that's
what
what
is
you're
on.
maintaining. That's what you're saying Maui offers as eyes and ears that would protect the island
Yep.
in the United States. Okay, okay.
And so now let me, for the listeners, break down exactly what is on the island of Maui in particular. This is Maui centric, not the other islands of the Hawaiian island chain. Maui is home to ARPA, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, which is responsible for all satellite based weapons testing, satellite tracking, near Earth and deep outer space tracking objects. And also, ARPA is where they do the our version of directed energy weapons, both R&D, research and development, and testing. It's also home of the Maui Space Surveillance Complex. It is the number one complex for tracking man-made space objects in the entire United States military, Department of Defense, and even our aerospace industry. It's also the home of the U.S. Space Force Command is on the island of Maui, but that's particular Space Surveillance Complex. It's also home to the High Performance Computing Center, which is the fifth most powerful computing center on the face of the earth, ladies and gents. I mean, you can't even comprehend what they're talking about. And even the number designation, the computing power of these supercomputers, burgeoning on the level of a quantum computer, which is only about three of the D-Wave quantum computers in the world, that is on the island of Maui. And what it is responsible for is all aerospace tracking, identification, targeting, missile launching and testing, and directed energy weapons. And as if that weren't enough to know and understand the strategic importance of why Maui needs to be blind, it needs to have its eyes poked out and its ears slapped, right? It needs to be made blind and deaf, is that Maui itself is also home to the DoD's largest, I say that in italics and underline, largest optical telescope for tracking man-made objects in outer space. That's Maui. That's Maui alone. And within that Maui Space Surveillance Complex, there's all kinds of secondary and tertiary entities as part of the DoD and different, ARPA-based programs and Space Force and space-based programs and space reconnaissance programs that are all centered out of Maui. So if you ever wanted to come anywhere near the West Coast, which we've heard about the plans from the hot mics from General Wei Feng and some of these other Chinese DoD counterparts, that they have on the table and the strategic repositioning of assets for a kinetic invasion of the West Coast in San Diego, LA, San Francisco, and up into the Columbia River Gorge. We know that. They've talked about it openly. Dave, you've covered that ad nauseum. You've done seminal work on that. So before you could ever even mount that, one of your last aspects of what we all know is shock and awe, right? From the '03 march up to Baghdad, as a part of your shock and awe is one, well, a couple different layers here. Let me just break this down for people. One, you would create radical civil chaos in these major cities on the Western seaboard, including internal strife, rioting, breakdown of critical infrastructure, and you would defund the police. And you would make as many people move out of the urban centers as possible, as in 1,800 businesses left downtown Portland in the last year. And there's been a mass exodus of people from all these major West Coast port cities. They've all fled Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Sacktown, all the way on down to San Diego. San Diego's been a little bit more untouched by all the crazy wokeness than some of the other cities. But then you would buy off and pay off all the local officials. You would reduce and hamstring your National Guard and your military, law enforcement, critical infrastructure. You'd overwhelm everything. You would collapse the local economies. You would pinch the supply chains to drive people out so that when you make your initial landing, just like we do as Marines when we take a beachhead, you have as little resistance as possible. And then after doing that, the last thing you would do before a significant kinetic exchange is you would blind them through SIGINT and human and signals intelligence and human intelligence. You would do your version of shock and awe, and you would pluck out their eyes and you would box their ears and make sure that they couldn't see what your next move were. So when you take out Maui, or when you reduce the population on Maui, or when you drive the people out of Maui, or when you overwhelm the critical infrastructure of Maui, now it is right for you to be able to come in and take over the singularly most strategic asset of the U.S. mainland strategic defense. That is the island of Maui and all of its space surveillance complex and its Barking Sands missile range and its deep water ports and its military bases and the U.S. Pacific Command Fleet, which is the largest command fleet in the U.S. military, all in one single little tiny geographical area where there's nowhere else for anybody to go except for the wide blue ocean of the Pacific. So that's why Maui is so radically significant.
Do we have any estimates or knowledge about how many of these institutions and facilities have been damaged?
No, I haven't seen any reports on that yet. And in fact, when I went digging the last couple of days, I could not find any. It was like YouTube or any other sites had been scrubbed of anything outside of the CNN, MSNBC,
That's
NBC,
true.
ABC. There was I could not find anything other than, the Mockingbird media repeating the same, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow, Lahaina, Lahaina, right? And just like the fires, it was very superficial, cursory videos or documentation from meteorologists and then from obviously the Mockingbird media, just repeating the narrative of dry conditions, high winds, spark wind. Oh, poor Lahaina. But nothing about anything else that's going on Maui. Nothing
That's bullcrap.
whatsoever.
Let me tell you what my friend who lives there told me. If you go back from the beach, you have on one side, you have the homes, the businesses, and so forth between the main road and the ocean. Okay. And you have both sides populated. But behind the east side of the road is massive farmland, sugarcane, and so forth and so on. Massive. And those areas were literally untouched. And see, this is what caught the attention of my military source. He said, this is the way fires work. And he said, it's following the pattern of businesses in the road, residents in the road. And I don't know if you've come across that or not, but so you have the area on both sides of the road up to the ocean, devastated, and then you have untouched behind that on the other side of the railroad tracks. Have you come across that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that it can't happen with wind-driven fires, and different wildland and grass fires. Actually, just 2 days ago here, our whole sky was blacked out because some guy's entire wheat field cooked off. We had the aerial fire retardant aircraft flying overhead all day long to drop it before the fire hit our national forest, and we're losing, you know, hundreds of square miles of forest. Luckily, they got it knocked down. So typically, you would see fire jump a road like that, but at the same time, with wildland forest firefighting, we would cut breaks. We cut breaks in line, and we would actually do controlled burns. That's one of the things about the hyper truther movement. Watching, I don't know how many times I saw the videos going around about the helicopters in Canada with guys dropping fire into the forest, and they're going, "See, the government's doing it." I'm like, "You morons! That's a controlled burn. They're back burning so they can create a fire break for the wildland fire. That's not the government setting the
I
fire.
understand. Yeah,
They
I
have
understand.
different means of setting the fire. That's wildland forest firefighting and wildland management 101, right? But yeah, it's not typical that you would see it stop at the road, especially if the winds were what they said they were, and where I'm going with this, Dave, is this is a particular doctrine of asymmetric warfare, or unrestricted warfare, as we know from the Chinese military doctrine, being pushed and backed by Russia. That's taken on a whole new level. This is where we get into the World War III. This is when we get into the red horse being loosed in the Book of Revelation, and peace being taken from the earth, and men being given over to slaughter one another. Because what's going on right now in real time is this doctrine of military encirclement, which we did and our island hopping campaign in the Pacific in order to get, to the mainland Japan and elsewhere. And now is happening in